I woke up to the sound of the phone ringing, sharp and loud in the dark. It was just before dawn, the kind of hour where nothing good ever happens. Caroline, my wife, stirred beside me, mumbling something before she reached for it. Her voice went from sleepy to stiff in seconds. "What? When?" she said, sitting up fast. I rubbed my eyes and turned on the lamp, watching her face tighten. Her dad, Victor Ellison, was dead. Heart attack. No warning, no slow goodbye, just gone. The man who built Ellison Dynamics, a billion-dollar tech empire, was out of the picture, and I could feel the ground shifting under us already. Caroline hung up, staring at the wall like she could see through it. "He's gone," she whispered, more to herself than me. I didn't know what to say. Victor wasn't just her father. He was my boss, my mentor, the guy who gave me a shot when I married into the family. I'd been head of strategy for years, turning his wild ideas into plans that worked. Now, with him dead, everything felt uncertain. I got out of bed and made coffee while she started making calls. Funeral stuff, lawyers, the board. She was Victor's only kid, so it hit me quick. She'd be the one taking over. The company was hers now. I should have been happy for her, proud even. I'd always told her she could do big things, even when she doubted herself. But there was this knot in my gut I couldn't shake. We'd been married 10 years, and I'd spent most of them proving I wasn't just the husband at work. I'd earned my place, late nights and all. As I handed her a mug, she barely looked at me, already barking orders into her phone. "Get the jet ready. I'll be there by noon." I stood there, feeling like a shadow in my own house. The day dragged on. Meetings with suits, tears from her mom, a press release I helped draft. I kept busy, playing the supportive guy everyone expected. But that night, lying awake, I couldn't stop thinking, what happens to me now? Victor was the one who kept me in the game. Without him, would Caroline even need me around? The funeral was a blur, black suits, flowers, speeches about Victor's genius. I stood next to Caroline, my arm around her, but she felt miles away. People shook my hand, said how sorry they were, but I caught a few glances, like they were sizing me up, wondering what my role would be now that the king was dead. I didn't have an answer. By the time we got home, she was already talking about the company, her voice sharp with something new. "Tomorrow's a big day," she said, sipping wine. "I'm meeting the board. It's official. I'm president." I nodded, forcing a smile. "You've got this," I said, meaning it. But her eyes flicked to me, cold and quick, like she was seeing me for the first time. "Yeah," she said. "I do." That's when I felt it. A crack between us, small but real. I didn't know then how wide it'd get, or how fast. All I knew was the phone call that morning wasn't just the end of Victor. It was the start of something else, something I wasn't ready for. I went to bed uneasy, staring at the ceiling, wondering what the hell was coming next. I woke up the next morning to an empty bed. Caroline was already gone, probably halfway to the office by the time I rolled out from under the covers. The house felt too quiet without her, just the hum of the coffee maker I switched on to keep me company. Yesterday's news still hung heavy. Victor dead, Caroline stepping into his shoes. I should have been at her side, but she hadn't asked me to come. I figured she needed space, or maybe she just wanted to face the board alone. Either way, I drove to Ellison Dynamics myself, the familiar route feeling strange now, like I was heading into someone else's world. I'd spent years building my place there, head of strategy, Victor's go-to guy for turning chaos into profit. But with him gone, I wasn't sure where I stood anymore. When I got to the office, the lobby buzzed with whispers. People nodded at me, but their eyes darted away fast. I caught snippets, Caroline's name, words like transition and new era. I took the elevator to the top floor, my stomach twisting. My office was the same as always, big desk, view of the city, stacks of reports I'd been working on. But it felt off, like I was trespassing. I sat down anyway, pulling up emails, trying to act normal. That's when Brenda, my assistant, poked her head in. "She's in the boardroom," she said, her voice tight. "Been there since 8. I nodded, forcing a grin. Guess she's hitting the ground running. Brenda didn't smile back. She just ducked out, leaving me alone with my coffee and a growing unease. I decided to check in myself. The boardroom doors were glass, so I could see her before I walked in. Caroline at the head of the table, all sharp suit and sharper words. The old guard was there. Harvey Lee from Global Development, Rosa Medina from Ethics, a dozen others who'd known me since I started. They were listening to her, nodding like she'd been born for this. I pushed the door open, and she didn't even pause. "We're moving forward with the Q4 projections," she was saying, "but I want fresh eyes on everything." I slipped into a seat near the back, catching Harvey's eye. He gave me a quick nod, but Caroline didn't look my way. She was in her element, commanding the room like Victor used to. I felt a flicker of pride. She was good at this, better than I'd expected. But there was something else too, a distance I couldn't pin down. The meeting dragged on. Numbers, timelines, a pep talk about honoring Dad's legacy. I chimed in once, suggesting we fast-track a project Victor and I had cooked up last year. She cut me off mid-sentence. "We'll revisit that later," she said, her tone clipped. The room went quiet, and I felt heat creep up my neck. I'd been in that chair 100 times, tossing ideas around with Victor while she was off doing PR fluff. Now she was shutting me down like I was some intern. I swallowed it, kept my face neutral. When it wrapped up, I hung back as the others filed out. "Good start," I said, walking up to her. She was flipping through papers, barely glancing at me. "Thanks," she said, flat. "Busy day ahead." I waited for more, an invite to strategize, a nod to what we built together. Nothing came. "You need me for anything?" I asked. She finally looked up, her eyes cool. "Not right now." I left the boardroom feeling like I'd been kicked. Back in my office, I stared out the window, replaying it. She'd always had a stubborn streak, but this was different, calculated, almost cold. I told myself it was grief, or stress, or just her trying to prove herself. But deep down, I knew better. I'd seen that look before, back when we fought over dumb stuff like where to vacation. It was the look she gave when she'd already made up her mind, and I wasn't part of it. I spent the afternoon digging into work, calling clients, tweaking plans. It kept my hands busy, but my head was elsewhere. By evening, I headed home, figuring we'd talk it out over dinner like always. She got back late, heels clicking as she dropped her bag on the counter. I'd cooked, nothing fancy, just pasta and a bottle of red. "How'd it go?" I asked, pouring her glass. She took it, sitting across from me. "Fine. Official now. I'm president. Papers are signed." Her voice was steady, but there was this edge to it, like she was daring me to say something. "That's big," I said, raising my glass. "To you." She clinked hers against mine, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You'll be taken care of," she said, out of nowhere. I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. "What's that mean?" I asked, keeping it light. She shrugged, sipping her wine. "Just what I said. You don't need to worry." It sounded like a promise, but it felt like a threat. We ate in silence after that, the air thick between us. I cleaned up while she scrolled her phone, already back in her new world. As I watched her, I couldn't shake the feeling that taken care of wasn't what I wanted it to be. That night, I lay awake again, staring at the ceiling. She'd climbed the throne today, and I was starting to wonder if there was room for me beside her, or if I'd just been a stepping stone all along. I woke up early, the kind of early where the sky's still gray and the house creaks like it's holding its breath. Caroline was already gone again, her side of the bed cold. I didn't mind. I needed the quiet to think. Yesterday's dinner kept replaying in my head, her words looping like a bad song. "You'll be taken care of." It sounded nice on the surface, but the way she said it, all smug and distant, stuck with me. I showered, dressed, grabbed my keys. Whatever was going on, I'd figure it out at the office. That's where I'd always solve things, sitting at my desk, mapping out problems like they were puzzles. Today felt different, though. The drive-in was slow, traffic clogging the highway, giving me too much time to stew. By the time I pulled into the parking garage at Ellison Dynamics, my gut was tight, like I was walking into a fight I didn't know about yet. The lobby was the same as always, glass walls, fake plants, the receptionist who never smiled. I nodded at her, took the elevator up. People were milling around, quieter than usual, like they were waiting for something. I brushed it off and headed to my office. Brenda was there, standing by my door, fidgeting with a pen. "Morning," I said, trying to sound normal. She didn't meet my eyes, just mumbled something and scurried off. That's when I knew. Something was wrong. I pushed the door open, and there it was, sitting dead center on my desk, a white envelope with my name scratched across it in sharp, black ink. No stamp, no return address, just James Carter, in a handwriting I didn't recognize. I dropped my bag, shut the door, and picked it up. My fingers felt clumsy tearing it open, like I was moving through mud. The letter was short, typed, official. "Dear Mr. Carter," it started. "This is to inform you that Effective immediately, your resignation from the position of head of strategy at Ellison Dynamics has been accepted. We thank you for your service and wish you well in your future endeavors. At the bottom, a signature, Caroline Ellison, President. I read it twice, then 3 times, waiting for it to make sense. Resignation? I hadn't resigned. I'd been in that job 8 years, built half the damn strategies that kept us afloat. My hand shook as I set it down, the paper crinkling. I looked around my office, my books, my coffee mug, the framed photo of me and Victor shaking hands at some gala. This was my space. She couldn't just take it. I grabbed the letter and stormed down the hall, straight for her office. People parted like I was a truck barreling through, but I didn't care. I needed answers. Her door was cracked open. I didn't knock, just pushed it wide and stepped in. She was there, leaning back in Victor's old chair, her desk covered in files. She didn't even flinch when I walked in, just looked up with this calm, smug little smirk that made my blood boil. "What the hell is this?" I said, holding up the letter. She tilted her head, like she was sizing me up. "What it says," she replied, cool as ice. "You're out." I stepped closer, slamming the paper on her desk. "I didn't resign, Caroline. You don't get to just fire me like this. We're married. We built this together." She laughed, short and sharp, leaning forward now. "Built it together? Please, James. You were Dad's pet project. I'm in charge now, and I don't need you dragging me down." I stared at her, my chest tight. Dragging her down? I'd stayed late when she went home early, fixed messes she didn't even see. "You can't do this," I said, quieter now, trying to keep my voice steady. "The board won't let you." She shrugged, that smirk growing. "They already did. It's done." I wanted to yell, to flip the desk, to make her feel how wrong this was. But her eyes, cold, hard, like she'd been planning this, stopped me. She thought she'd won, that I'd crumble and walk away. I took a breath, deep and slow, and something clicked. I didn't need to fight her here, not like this. I straightened up, looked her dead in the eye, and smiled. "Perfect," I said. Her face twitched, just for a second, confusion, maybe fear. "What's that supposed to mean?" she snapped. I didn't answer. I just turned and walked out, leaving the letter crumpled on her desk. Back in my office, I didn't sit down. I started packing slow, deliberate. My books, my pens, that photo with Victor. People peeked in, whispering, but I ignored them. Brenda came by, hovering like she wanted to say something. "You okay?" she asked finally. "Yeah," I lied, shoving a notebook in my bag. "Just cleaning up." She nodded, didn't push. I could feel Caroline watching from down the hall. She'd followed me, probably expecting me to beg or break. I didn't give her the satisfaction. "See you around," I said to Brenda, slinging my bag over my shoulder. As I headed for the elevator, Caroline's voice cut through. "You were never more than my dad's charity project," she hissed, loud enough for everyone to hear. I stopped, turned, looked at her. She was grinning, loving the audience. I could have told her the truth right then, how Victor trusted me more than her, how I'd been his real right hand. But I didn't. I just kept walking. In the car, I gripped the wheel, my knuckles white. Charity project? She had no idea. Victor and I had been tight, late-night talks, plans she'd never touched. He'd seen her ambition, her blind spots. And he'd made sure I had a card to play if she ever pulled something like this. I didn't know what it was yet, not exactly, but I knew it was coming. As I pulled out of the garage, my phone buzzed. A text from Ellis Monroe, Victor's lawyer. "Call me when you're free," it said. I smirked. She thought she'd cut me out, but this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I turned up the radio and drove home, the letter still burning in my mind, but now it felt like fuel. I walked out of Ellison Dynamics with my bag slung over my shoulder, the weight of it nothing compared to the fire in my chest. Caroline's words echoed in my head, charity project. She'd called me, spitting it out like I was some stray her dad picked up off the street. The parking garage smelled like oil and concrete, and my footsteps bounced off the walls as I headed to my car. People stared as I passed, their whispers trailing behind me, but I kept my eyes forward. She wanted a show? Fine. Let her think she'd won. I slid into the driver's seat, tossed my bag in the back, and just sat there for a minute, staring at the dashboard. My hands were still shaking from the confrontation, her smirk, her voice, the way she twisted the knife in front of everyone. I could have fought back right then, thrown everything I knew in her face. But I didn't. That perfect I'd tossed at her wasn't surrender, it was a promise. She'd see. I started the engine and pulled out, the city blurring past as I drove. My office was gone, my job was gone, and my wife, hell, I wasn't even sure what she was to me now. We'd been a team, or so I thought. I'd spent years covering for her, smoothing over her impulsive calls, filling in the gaps when she didn't want to get her hands dirty. And this was how she paid me back, kicking me out the second she got power? I gripped the wheel tighter, weaving through traffic. She thought I'd beg, crawl back to her, maybe sue her for the hell of it. She didn't know me at all. I wasn't some nobody she could toss aside. Victor hadn't just hired me because I married his daughter. He'd seen something in me, trusted me with things she'd never understand. And that trust? It was about to bite her. Halfway home, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I fished it out at a red light, Ellis Monroe's text still glowing on the screen. Call me when you're free. I smirked again, the first real spark of something like hope since that damn letter hit my desk. Ellis was Victor's lawyer, old school and loyal as hell. If he was reaching out now, it wasn't for small talk. I'd known him almost as long as I'd known Victor, quiet dinners, late-night strategy sessions when Caroline was off doing God knows what. He'd been at the funeral, too, shaking my hand with this look in his eye like he knew more than he was saying. I didn't call him yet, needed to clear my head first. I turned into a gas station, grabbed a coffee from the shop inside. The clerk barely looked at me, and I was glad for it. Standing there, sipping burnt coffee, I let my mind go back to Victor. He'd been a hard man, gruff, demanding, the kind of guy who'd chew you out 1 minute and pour you a drink the next. But he liked me, not just as his daughter's husband, but as a partner. We'd sit in his study, him with his whiskey, me with a beer, hashing out plans for the company. You've got a steady head, James, he'd say. Caroline's got fire, but you've got the reins. I'd laugh it off, tell him she'd grow into it. He'd just grunt, like he wasn't so sure. The last time we talked, maybe 2 weeks before he died, he'd been different, quieter. If anything happens to me, he'd said, you keep an eye on things. Promise me that. I'd nodded, thinking it was just old man worry. Now, with Caroline pulling this stunt, I wondered what he'd really meant. Had he seen this coming? Had he planned for it? I got back in the car, the coffee warming my hands. The drive home was quieter, my thoughts settling into something sharper. Caroline thought she'd blindsided me, but she didn't know everything. Victor and I had been working on something, a contingency, he'd called it. He'd never spelled it out, just dropped hints about safeguards and balance. I'd figured it was some legal tweak to the succession plan, something to keep the board in line. But now, with Ellis texting me, I started connecting dots. Whatever it was big enough to make Caroline follow me down that hall, spitting venom to cover her tracks. She wanted me gone fast, too fast. That meant she was scared of something. Scared of me. I pulled into our driveway, the house looming dark and empty. She wouldn't be home for hours, probably gloating at the office. Fine by me. I needed space to think, to figure out my next move. Inside, I dropped my bag by the door and sank onto the couch. My phone buzzed again, another text from Ellis. She's been served the email. Stand by. My heart kicked up a notch. Email? What email? I dialed him, no hesitation this time. He picked up on the second ring. James, he said, voice low and steady. You've seen the letter. I take it? I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. Yeah. She fired me, or says I resigned. What's going on, Ellis? He chuckled, dry and short. Victor knew she might pull something like this. We set up a little surprise. Check your inbox, I copied you. I grabbed my laptop, fumbling to log in. There it was, timestamped 10 minutes ago, a message from Ellis to Caroline. Subject line, Ellison Trust Codicil Activation. I skimmed it. Legal jargon, dates, Victor's signature. Then the kicker, I was co-executor of the trust, with equal say over the company's assets. Caroline couldn't move a dime without me. I sat back, a grin spreading slow across my face. You're kidding, I said into the phone. Ellis didn't laugh. Victor's orders. He wanted you in the game if she got too big for her boots. She's reading it now, probably tearing her hair out. I could picture it, her pale face, that smirk wiped clean off. What's my play? I asked. Sit tight, he said. She'll come to you. And when she does, you've got the upper hand. I hung up, staring at the screen. Caroline thought she'd cut me loose, but Victor had tied me back and tighter than ever. She'd walked right into it, and I hadn't even pulled the trigger yet. I poured myself a drink, bourbon, straight, and raised it to the empty room. To you, Victor, I said. I sat on the couch with my laptop open, the bourbon still warm in my hand, staring at the email from Ellis. The words glowed on the screen: co-executor of the Ellison Trust, equal control, Victor's signature stamped at the bottom like a ghost reaching out from the grave. My head was spinning, not from the drink, but from the weight of it all. Caroline had fired me, or thought she had, just hours ago, smirking like she'd finally shaken me off. Now this. I wasn't just back in the game. I was holding half the deck. I took a slow sip, letting the burn settle me. The house was dead quiet, just the hum of the fridge in the kitchen. She wouldn't be home for a while, probably still at the office, basking in her big win. Except it wasn't a win anymore. Not after this email hit her inbox. I reread the message, picking it apart. Per the sealed codicil dated January 15th, 2024, James Carter is hereby appointed co-executor of the Ellison Trust, with full authority over all assets and operations of Ellison Dynamics, to be exercised in tandem with Caroline Ellison. Full authority. In tandem. That meant she couldn't sign a contract, move a dollar, or fire anyone, not even me, without my say-so. Victor had locked us together, whether she liked it or not. I leaned back, a laugh bubbling up, rough and low. He'd known her better than I did, seen that power-hungry streak she had behind her smiles. And he'd trusted me to balance it. Me, the guy she'd called a charity case. I set the glass down and ran a hand through my hair, trying to wrap my head around it. How long had he been planning this? Why hadn't he told me outright? My phone buzzed on the coffee table. Ellis again. She's opened it, the text said. Give her time to stew. I could imagine her now, sitting in that big office, her fingers frozen over her keyboard as the words sank in. That smirk would be gone, replaced by something else: panic, maybe, or rage. I didn't call her. Didn't need to. She'd come to me when she was ready, and I'd be waiting. I got up, paced the living room, the hardwood creaking under my feet. The adrenaline was kicking in now, mixing with the bourbon, making me restless. I'd been driving home an hour ago, thinking I was done, out of a job, out of a marriage maybe. Now I was back in the driver's seat, and she didn't even know how deep this went yet. I stopped by the window, looking out at the dark street. The plan had been Victor's, but the timing? That was pure luck, or fate, if you believe in that stuff. I thought back to those talks with him, the ones Caroline never knew about. Late nights in his study, maps and charts spread out, and pointing at numbers while I scribbled notes. She's got the spark, he'd say, but she's impulsive. Needs someone to ground her. I'd nod, thinking he meant me as her husband, not her watchdog. But that last meeting, the one 2 weeks before his heart gave out, felt heavier now. He'd poured me a double, looked me in the eye, and said, "You're the steady one, James. Don't let her burn it down." I'd promised I wouldn't, figuring it was just him being dramatic. Turns out he'd meant every word, and backed it up with ink and a lawyer. I shook my head, a grin tugging at my lips. The old man was still running the show, even from the ground. My phone stayed quiet, but I knew it wouldn't for long. I went to the kitchen, grabbed a sandwich, hadn't eaten since morning, and the day had drained me. As I chewed, I pulled up the codicil again, digging into the details. It wasn't just about control. It named me guardian of the legacy, some poetic nonsense that meant I could challenge her if she went off the rails. Victor had thought of everything: board votes, asset splits, even a clause about mutual consent for major moves. She couldn't sideline me, not legally. I finished the sandwich, wiped my hands, and checked the clock. Almost 9. She'd be wrapping up soon, unless she was too rattled to leave the office. I hoped she was rattled. She deserved it after that stunt with the letter. I was halfway through another bourbon when the headlights swung into the driveway. My pulse picked up, but I stayed put, leaning against the counter. The door opened, and there she was, Caroline, still in her power suit, her face pale as hell. She dropped her bag, stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "You got the email," I said, casual, like we were talking about the weather. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again. "What the hell is this?" she said, her voice shaking. "Co-executor? Guardian of the legacy? Why didn't I know about this?" I shrugged, taking a sip. "Guess Victor didn't trust you to play nice." Her eyes narrowed, but there was fear behind them now, not just anger. "He trusted me to run this company," she snapped. "Not you." I set the glass down, stepped closer. "Then why'd he give me half the keys?" She didn't answer, just stood there, breathing hard. I could see the gears turning, her trying to figure out how to spin this, how to get back on top. "This changes nothing," she said finally, but it sounded weak, like she was convincing herself. "It changes everything," I shot back. "You can't move without me now. No more solo power trips." She glared, her hands balling into fists. "You think you can just waltz back in?" She stopped herself, but I knew what she meant. After she fired me. I smiled, slow and deliberate, the same way I had in her office. I never left, I said. Victor made sure of that. She turned and stormed upstairs, slamming the bedroom door. I didn't follow. Let her stew, like Ellis said. I went back to the couch, opened my laptop again, and stared at the email. This was my lifeline now, proof I wasn't out, proof I mattered. The bourbon was hitting harder, but I stayed sharp, thinking through what came next. She'd fight this. I knew her too well to think otherwise. But I had the upper hand, and I wasn't letting it go. My phone buzzed one more time, Ellis. She'll call a meeting tomorrow. Be ready. I typed back. I will. Then I leaned back, closed my eyes, and let the quiet settle. The game wasn't over. It was just starting. I didn't sleep much that night. The couch wasn't comfortable, but I wasn't about to climb into bed with Caroline after that showdown. Her slamming the door still rang in my ears, and the bourbon had left me wired instead of calm. I kept replaying her face, pale, shaken, the smugness gone like someone had flipped a switch. That email from Ellis had hit her hard, and I couldn't help but feel a grim satisfaction. She thought she could erase me with one swipe of her pen, but Victor had other plans. I lay there in the dark, the laptop still open on the coffee table, its glow cutting through the shadows. My phone sat beside it, silent since Ellis's last text. Be ready, he'd said. I was ready more than she knew. Morning came slow, gray light creeping through the blinds. I got up, stiff and groggy, and made coffee. The house was quiet, no sign of Caroline yet. I figured she was upstairs, plotting her next move. She wasn't the type to just roll over, not even with Victor's ghost pulling strings. I sipped my coffee, black and bitter, and checked my phone. Nothing new from Ellis, but I didn't need him to tell me what was coming. She'd call a meeting, try to rally the board, spin this into something she could control. I'd be there, though calm, steady, with that codicil in my back pocket. I showered, put on a suit, the dark one I wore for big days. Today felt big, like the air was thick with it. When I heard her footsteps on the stairs, I was already at the counter, pouring a second cup. She walked in, dressed sharp black blazer, heels, her hair pulled back tight. No trace of last night's shock, just a hard edge in her eyes. Morning, I said, sliding the coffee toward her. She didn't take it, just stared at me, her jaw tight. We need to talk, she said, voice low. I leaned back, crossing my arms. Thought we did that last night. Her lips pressed into a thin line. This co-executor thing. Why didn't you tell me? I raised an eyebrow. Didn't know myself till yesterday. Victor kept it quiet. She stepped closer, her hands gripping the counter. He named you guardian of the legacy. Why? What did he say to you? I met her gaze, kept mine steady. Guess he trusted the one who never wanted the crown. She flinched, just a flicker, but I saw it. Then her phone rang, cutting through the tension. She snatched it up, turned away. Yes, I'll be there, she snapped, then hung up. Board's meeting in an hour, she said, not looking at me. You coming? I nodded. Wouldn't miss it. The drive to the office was separate. She took her car. I took mine. The silence suited me fine. I needed to think. Ellis had said she'd opened the email, but I didn't know how much she'd processed. Did she get the part where I could veto her every move? Or was she still banking on the board siding with her? I pulled into the garage, parked a few spots from her sleek BMW. She was already out, striding toward the elevator without a glance back. I followed, keeping my distance. The lobby was buzzing again. People whispering, eyes darting between us. I caught Brenda near the coffee machine, gave her a quick nod. She looked nervous, like she knew a storm was brewing. I took the stairs instead of the elevator, needing the extra minute to clear my head. By the time I hit the boardroom floor, I could hear the chaos through the glass doors. Inside, it was a mess, voices overlapping, papers rustling, Caroline at the head of the table trying to look in charge. Harvey Lee was there, frowning at his phone. Rosa Medina was flipping through a binder, her face tight. The rest of the board, 10 suits who'd known me for years, were shifting in their seats, uneasy. I walked in, calm as I could manage, and took a chair near the back. Caroline's eyes flicked to me, then away. Let's get started, she said, her voice sharp. You've all seen the email from Mr. Monroe. I want to address it. She launched in, talking fast about continuity, her vision, how Victor's wishes were being misinterpreted. I listened, letting her dig her hole. Then my phone buzzed, Caroline's number. I answered low. What? Her voice was a hiss. Why did he name you co-executor? Why the legacy thing? Tell me now. I kept it simple, loud enough for the room to hear. I guess he trusted me more than you thought. Heads turned. Her face went white. She hung up, glaring at me across the table. This doesn't change my role, she said to the room. I'm still president. Harvey cleared his throat. It changes plenty, Caroline. James has equal say now. What's the plan? She faltered, just for a second. We'll work together, she said, the words sounding like they hurt. Rosa piped up. The codicil's clear. You two co-sign everything. How's that going to play out? I leaned forward, keeping my tone even. Simple. She leads, I sign off. Victor wanted balance, not a solo act. The room went quiet. Caroline's hands clenched on the table, her knuckles pale. This is ridiculous, she muttered. He's not even. She stopped herself, but I knew what she meant. Not even family. Not even qualified. I didn't bite. Just sat back and let the silence stretch. The meeting stumbled on, questions about logistics, timelines, who'd handle what. Caroline kept her cool, mostly, but I could see the cracks. Every time someone mentioned the trust, her eyes darted to me, like she was waiting for me to pounce. I didn't. Not yet. When it wrapped up, she stayed at the table, staring at her notes. I got up, nodded to Harvey and Rosa, and headed out. She called after me. James. I turned. Her face was still pale, but her voice was steady now. This isn't over. I smiled, small and cold. Never said it was. Then I walked away, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. She wasn't a queen anymore, just a partner, whether she liked it or not. And I wasn't silent anymore. Victor had made sure of that. I left the boardroom with my head high, the hum of voices fading behind me as the glass doors swung shut. Caroline's last words, "This isn't over," hung in the air, but they didn't shake me. She could threaten all she wanted. The codicil was ironclad, and I wasn't backing down. The hallway stretched out, quiet except for the click of my shoes on the tile. I passed Brenda's desk. She gave me a quick, nervous smile, like she wasn't sure whose side to pick. I nodded back, kept moving. My office was gone, but I didn't need it anymore. Victor had handed me something bigger than a desk, a stake in the company I'd helped build. I headed for the break room, grabbed a water from the fridge, and stood by the window, looking out at the city. The board meeting had been a mess, but it was just the start. Things were about to get louder. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Harvey Lee. You okay? He asked when I picked up. His voice was gruff, no nonsense, like always. Yeah, I said, taking a sip. You? He grunted. Hell of a curveball, that email. She's pissed. I smirked. She'll get over it. Harvey didn't laugh. Board's restless, James. Investors are calling already. Words out she tried to axe you. They want answers. I leaned against the glass, the cold seeping through my jacket. Let him ask. I've got nothing to hide. He paused, then said, Good. We're meeting tonight. Me, Rosa, a few others. Off the books. You in? I didn't hesitate. Yeah. Where? He gave me an address. A bar downtown, quiet spot Victor used to like. 7, he said, then hung up. I slipped the phone back, feeling the pieces shift. The board might have been rattled, but Harvey and Rosa? They were old guard. They'd stick with stability over drama. The day dragged on. I didn't go home, didn't want to face Caroline yet. Instead, I parked myself in a corner of the cafeteria, laptop open, digging through emails and old files. Word spread fast. By noon, my inbox was flooded. Reporters asking about the leadership shakeup. Analysts sniffing for cracks in Ellison dynamics. I kept my replies short, professional. The company's in good hands. Victor's vision stands. Let Caroline deal with the rest. She wanted the spotlight. She could have it. Around 3, my phone lit up again, a news alert. Ellison Dynamics President ousts husband, faces trust dispute. I skimmed it. Mostly speculation, but they had the basics. Her firing me, the codicil, the boardroom tension. I shook my head, closed the tab. The media could spin it however they liked. Facts were facts, and I had them on my side. By 6, I was on my way to the bar. The city was alive. Cars honking, lights flickering on as dusk settled. I found the place easy, low-key, brick walls, a neon sign half burned out. Harvey was already there, nursing a beer at a back table. Rosa sat beside him, her glasses perched on her nose, a stack of papers in front of her. 2 others, Tom from finance and Priya from legal, nodded as I walked up. Glad you made it, Harvey said, sliding me a bottle. I took it, sat down. What's the word? Rosa pushed her glasses up, her voice crisp. Investors are spooked. They're asking why Caroline fired the co-executor. She's dodging calls, but it's leaking. Someone tipped off the press about the transition clause. I leaned back, sipping the beer. She thought she could bury it. Bury me? Harvey snorted. She misread the room. Victor's allies aren't buying her lone wolf act. We talked it through, quiet, steady, no grandstanding. They weren't here for revenge. They wanted the company to hold. Tom laid out numbers. Stock was wobbly, but not crashing yet. Priya flagged legal risks. Caroline's move could spark lawsuits if she pushed too hard. I listened, chimed in where it mattered. Victor didn't want a monarchy, I said finally. He built this with us, not just her. Rosa nodded. That's what we're fighting for. Stability. Respect. Harvey tapped the table. She's got the title, but you've got the trust. We back you, James, not out of spite, but because it's right. I met his eyes, then Rose's, Tom's, Priya's. They weren't just nodding along. They meant it. I felt something loosen in my chest, like I wasn't carrying this alone anymore. The meeting broke around 9. I drove home, the bar's warmth fading as the night closed in. Caroline's car was in the driveway, lights on upstairs. I walked in, dropped my keys on the counter. She didn't come down, but I could hear her pacing, her voice sharp on a call. I grabbed a glass of water, sat in the living room, waiting. She appeared 10 minutes later, phone still in hand, her face tight. You've been busy, she said, stopping by the stairs. I shrugged. Just talking to some friends. Her eyes narrowed. The board's asking questions. Investors too. This is your mess now. I set the glass down, looked up at her. You made it a mess, Caroline. Firing me started this. I'm just cleaning it up. She laughed, bitter. Cleaning it up? You're turning them against me. I stood, keeping my voice level. They're not against you. They're for the company. Like I am. She didn't answer. Just stared, her hands trembling slightly. I'm still president, she said, like it was a shield. And I'm still co-executor. I shot back. We're in this together, whether you like it or not. She turned, started up the stairs, then stopped. You're enjoying this, she said, not looking back. I didn't deny it. Maybe a little, I said. But I'm not the one who drew first blood. She kept going, the door clicking shut behind her. I sank back onto the couch, the quiet settling in. The board was restless, the media was circling, and the old guard was with me. Not for a coup, but for what Victor stood for. Caroline could fight all she wanted, but the reckoning was here, and I wasn't blinking. I woke up to the sound of rain tapping the windows, a steady drum that matched the ache in my head. The couch had become my bed again, and my back wasn't thanking me for it. Caroline was already gone, no surprise there. She'd been a ghost in the house since the board meeting, avoiding me like I was the enemy instead of her husband. I didn't care much anymore. The space suited me. I got up, stretched, made coffee. The news alert on my phone blinked. Another headline about Ellison Dynamics. This one digging into the trust codicil. Power struggle at tech giant, it read. I skimmed it, snorted. Struggle? Maybe for her. For me, it was just playing the hand Victor dealt. I finished my coffee, grabbed my keys, and headed out. Today was big. The board was voting, and I had a move to make. The drive to the office was slick, wipers swiping at the rain. My mind was on the codicil, that special clause I'd spotted late last night. In the event leadership jeopardizes the company's mission, the co-executor may initiate a vote of restructuring. It was buried in legal fluff, but it was clear. If Caroline's stunt, firing me, dodging the trust, put Ellison Dynamics at risk, I could force a reset. I'd called Ellis at dawn, run it by him. It's solid, he'd said, voice gravelly from sleep. You've got the proof. Her letter, the media mess, investor calls. Use it. I plan to. Not to take her down, but to level the field. Victor wanted balance, not chaos, and I was damn well going to give it to him. I got to the office early, the lobby half empty, rain keeping people away. Brenda waved from her desk, a stack of files beside her. They're setting up upstairs, she said, nodding toward the boardroom. Good luck. I grinned, more confident than I felt. Thanks. I'll need it. The elevator ride was quick, my reflection staring back from the steel doors, suit crisp, tie straight, eyes sharp. I looked like a man with a plan, even if my gut was churning. The boardroom was already buzzing when I walked in. Harvey pacing, Rosa tapping her pen, the others flipping through agendas. Caroline stood at the head, her back to me, talking low to Priya from legal. She didn't turn when I sat down, but I saw her shoulders stiffen. Good. Let her feel me there. The meeting kicked off fast. Caroline took the floor, her voice steady but clipped. We've had turbulence, she said, hands flat on the table. The trust codicil caught us off guard, but I'm still president. My focus is moving forward. New projects, growth, stability. She glanced at me then, quick and cold. James and I will work together, as required. It sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced it in the mirror. Harvey cut in. Work together how? You fired him, Caroline. Investors are jumping ship. She bristled. That was a misstep. He's back now. Rosa leaned forward. Back how? The codicil says equal power. What's the structure? Caroline faltered, just a beat. We're figuring it out, she said. I stayed quiet, letting her flounder. The room wasn't buying it. Too many frowns, too much shifting in chairs. That's when I stood. I've got something to say, I said, keeping my tone even. All eyes turned. Caroline's too, narrow and wary. I pulled a folder from my bag, the codicil and memos Victor had written, stuff I'd dug up from old files. The trust gives me a move here, I said, sliding copies across the table. If leadership risks the mission, I can call a restructuring vote. I'm doing it now. The room went still, like the air got sucked out. Caroline's face tightened. What? She snapped. I kept going, calm but firm. Firing me without cause, hiding the codicil. That's not stability. It's reckless. Victor wanted a partnership, not a takeover. I've got proof, his notes, our talks. He saw this coming. I tapped the folder. Read it. He mapped out a dual structure. President and chairman, equal say. That's what I'm asking for. Murmurs broke out. Harvey nodding. Rosa scanning the pages. Tom from finance scribbling notes. Caroline stood, her voice rising. This is absurd. I'm president. Dad named me successor. I met her glare. And he named me co-executor. He didn't trust you alone. Her mouth opened, then shut, her hands shaking. I laid out the rest. Old emails, minutes from sessions with Victor, his handwriting scrawled across plans for a balanced lead. He built this with us? I said, looking around the table. Not one person. We vote now. Keep her as president, make me executive chairman. Same power, shared vision. No more secrets. The board leaned in, flipping through the evidence. Caroline sank back, her fight draining out. Harvey spoke first. I'm with James. This works, keeps us steady. Rosa nodded. It's what Victor wanted. I'm in. One by one. They chimed in. Tom, Priya, the rest. Unanimous. Caroline's head dropped, her fingers digging into the table. Fine, she muttered, barely audible. I didn't gloat, just sat down, the folder still open in front of me. The meeting shifted to logistics, titles, roles, a press release. I'd won, but it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like fixing something she'd broken. When it ended, she stayed put, staring at nothing. I walked out, Harvey clapping my shoulder. Good call, he said. I nodded, too tired to smile. The rain had stopped outside, the city gleaming wet and new. I'd clipped her wings, but not out of spite. For the company, for Victor. Now we'd see if she could fly straight. I drove home from the board meeting with the radio off, the silence letting my thoughts settle. The vote was done. Caroline stayed president. I was executive chairman, equal power locked in place. The rain had cleared, leaving the streets slick and reflective, mirroring the city lights in a way that almost felt hopeful. But inside, I was still churning. It wasn't a win I'd wanted to chase. Not like this, not against her. Victor's plan had worked, though. The company was safe, balanced, like he'd meant it to be. I pulled into the driveway, saw her car already there. The house lights were on, glowing soft through the windows. She'd beaten me back, probably licking her wounds. I didn't rush inside. Sat there a minute, hands on the wheel, breathing slow. Whatever came next, we weren't the same anymore. Maybe we never would be. When I walked in, the air felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. Her heels were by the door, her bag dumped on the counter, sloppy, not like her. I heard glass clink from the living room and found her there, sitting on the floor by the coffee table, a wine bottle half empty beside her. A shattered glass lay in pieces near the wall, red staining the carpet. She didn't look up, just stared at the bottle, her knees pulled up like a kid. I stopped in the doorway, unsure what to say. This wasn't the Caroline I knew. not the sharp, in-control woman who'd smirked at me 2 days ago. You okay? I asked, keeping my voice low. She laughed, a jagged sound. Do I look okay, James? Her eyes flicked to me then, red-rimmed, raw. I stepped closer, set my keys down. What happened? She took a swig straight from the bottle, wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. You happened, she said, her voice breaking. You and Dad. You took it all away. I frowned, crouching beside her, careful of the glass. I didn't take anything. You still run the company. She shook her head, hard. Not like I wanted. Not like he promised. Her fingers tightened around the bottle, trembling. He never believed in me. Just you. I sat back on my heels, the words hitting like a punch. That's not true, I said. He believed in both of us. You were his daughter. He picked you to lead. I was just his right hand. But you tried to erase that. She looked at me, tears spilling now. Because I had to. You were always there, fixing everything, making me look small. I didn't know how to answer that. I'd never meant to shrink her. Hell, I'd spent years building her up, covering her blind spots. But maybe she'd never seen it that way. I wasn't competing, I said finally. I was helping. You're the one who turned it into a war. She dropped the bottle, wine sloshing onto the table, and buried her face in her hands. I just wanted it to be mine, she whispered. Just once. The room went quiet, the only sound her uneven breathing. I reached out, hesitated, then put a hand on her shoulder. She didn't pull away, but she didn't lean in either. We stayed like that, stuck between breaking and mending. After a while, I got up, grabbed a towel from the kitchen, started cleaning the mess. She watched, silent, as I swept up the glass, wiped the carpet. You don't have to do that, she said, voice small. Yeah, I do, I replied, not looking at her. It wasn't about the spill, it was about moving forward, one step at a time. When I finished, I sat across from her, the table between us like a line we couldn't cross. We're not enemies, I said. Not unless you want us to be. She didn't answer, just stared at the floor. I didn't push. She needed space, and I needed air. I stood, headed upstairs, left her there with her thoughts. The next day at the office, things shifted. The board's vote had settled the dust, emails slowed, investors calmed. I walked in as chairman, not a ghost, and people noticed. Brenda grinned when I passed her desk. New title suits you, she said. I chuckled. We'll see. Caroline was there too, in her office, door half open. She didn't look up as I walked by, but I caught her glance later, quick and guarded. We didn't talk, not yet, but we worked. I signed off on her Q4 plan. She nodded at my expansion memo. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't war either. Respectful strangers, that's what we'd become. The team felt it too, tension eased, focus returned. Brenda got a promotion to operations lead. Harvey pushed Asia deals. Rosa rolled out a DI program Victor would have loved. The company started healing, piece by piece. Weeks passed like that, quiet teamwork, no fireworks. One night, I came home late, found Caroline in the kitchen, sipping tea instead of wine. She looked up, her face softer than it had been in months. It's working, she said, almost surprised. The dual thing. I nodded, pouring myself a glass of water. Yeah, it is. She hesitated, then added, I'm sorry. For the letter. It wasn't much, but it was something. Me too, I said. For how it played out. We didn't hug, didn't cry, just stood there, letting the words sit. The glass was still broken between us, but the doors were open now, just a crack. Maybe that's all we'd get. For now, it was enough. I woke up to sunlight streaming through the bedroom window, a rare clear day after weeks of gray. Caroline was already up. I could hear her moving downstairs, the clink of a mug on the counter. Things had been steady since that night in the kitchen, her apology hanging between us like a fragile truce. We weren't fixed, not by a long shot, but we weren't tearing each other apart either. I rolled out of bed, feeling the weight of the last few months in my bones. The company was thriving, stock up, projects rolling, the dual leadership holding strong. But it was more than that. It was Victor's legacy, alive and breathing, just like he'd wanted. I pulled on a shirt, headed down, ready to face whatever this day would bring. She was in the kitchen, sipping coffee, her laptop open to some report. Morning, I said, grabbing a mug for myself. She nodded, her eyes flicking up briefly. Morning. Board recaps in an hour, virtual. You joining? I poured the coffee, leaned against the counter. Yeah, got a few points for Harvey's Asia push. She didn't smile, but her face softened a bit. Good. He's been asking for you. We'd gotten into a rhythm like this, short talks, all business, but civil. It wasn't the marriage we'd started with, full of laughs and late-night dreams, but it was something. Mutual respect, maybe, forged in the fire of everything we'd been through. I took my coffee to the table, sat across from her, and we worked in silence until the call. The meeting went smooth, numbers looked solid. Rose's DI plan got praise. Caroline outlined next quarter's goals. I chimed in on Asia, got nods from the board. She didn't fight me, just added her take, and we moved on. When it ended, she closed her laptop, looked at me. "That was clean," she said. "Yeah," I agreed. "Like it should be." She held my gaze a second longer than usual, then got up, disappearing upstairs. I stayed put, finishing my coffee, thinking about how far we'd come. Not friends, not enemies, just two people carrying the same load, side by side. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. Later that day, I drove to the office alone. I'd taken over Victor's old study there, a small room off the main floor, packed with his books and maps. It felt right, like he was still part of it. I'd been meaning to sort through his stuff, but today I had a reason. Ellis had dropped off a box last week, personal effects from Victor's estate, things he'd wanted me to have. I hadn't opened it yet, too caught up in the chaos. Now, with things calmer, I pulled it onto the desk, cut the tape. Inside were files, photos, a bottle of his favorite whiskey, and a letter, yellowed paper, my name in his shaky scrawl. My chest tightened as I unfolded it, the smell of old ink hitting me. "James," it started, "if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're holding the line. I knew you would. Caroline's got the heart, but you've got the head. She might fight you. Don't let her win. Not out of spite, but for the company. It's bigger than both of you. If she forgets what it means, remind her. Remind them all." I sat back, the words sinking in. He'd written it a year ago, date stamped in the corner, long before his heart gave out. He'd seen it coming, not just her ambition, but my role in checking it. I read it again, slower, his voice loud in my head. Steady, gruff, trusting. I folded it carefully, grabbed a frame from a drawer, and hung it on the wall. It wasn't a trophy yet. Just a guide, a quiet promise I'd keep. Caroline came by later, knocking once before stepping in. She saw the frame, paused. "What's that?" she asked, her tone neutral. "Letter from your dad," I said, not turning. "Left it for me." She walked over, read it silently. I watched her out of the corner of my eye. Her face didn't change, but her shoulders dropped a little. "He always liked you," she said, soft, no edge to it. "Yeah," I replied. "He liked you too, just differently." She didn't argue, just stood there a minute, then left without another word. I poured a shot of Victor's whiskey, raised it to the empty room. "To you," I said, and drank. Months rolled on like that. The company soared, new deals, bigger markets, headlines calling us a model turnaround. Caroline kept her title, ran the show with that fire she'd always had. I kept mine, steering from the sidelines, signing off on what mattered. We argued sometimes, sharp debates over budgets or timelines, but it wasn't personal anymore. It was about the work, the mission. The board settled, the team thrived. Brenda took ops to new heights. Harvey cracked Asia wide open. Rose's programs won awards. Ellison Dynamics wasn't just surviving, it was growing, reflecting Victor's values in ways I hadn't expected. One evening, I was in the boardroom late, reviewing contracts. Caroline walked in, her coat on, ready to leave. She stopped, looked at me across the table. No smirk, no glare, just recognition, like she finally saw me clear. "You're good at this," she said, almost to herself. I set the pen down, met her eyes. "So are you." A beat passed, heavy but not hostile. "Night," she said, turning away. "Night," I called back. She left, and I stayed, the quiet wrapping around me. Forgiveness wasn't there yet, maybe it never would be, but this was close enough. Silence, trust, a shared load. Victor's final word had held us together, and for now, that was all we needed.